Accessible Learning Services and Accommodations. PowerPoint slide presentation. Agenda. How to access accommodations. Accommodations in an online learning environment. What are accommodations? Examples of more common accommodations. Accommodations for tests and exams. What to do if you feel you are not being accommodated. Considering accommodations for field placement. Funding for accommodations. How do I register for accommodations? The ALS intake form is to be completed by all students. For web access to download the ALS intake form, go to GBC ALS website. The hyperlink is listed on the PowerPoint presentation. The ALS medical verification form is to be completed by a registered healthcare professional. Note: the medical verification form is not to be completed for students with learning disabilities. A copy of the student's latest psychoeducational assessment or individual education plan, or IEP, is required. For web access to download the ALS medical verification form, go to GBC ALS website, medical verification form. There is a hyperlink listed on the PowerPoint slide. Or, if you are replying to OSAP, the OSAP disability verification form can be submitted for your disability documentation instead of the ALS medical verification form. For web access to download the OSAP disability verification form, go to OSAP website, OSAP disability verification form. There is a hyperlink listed on the PowerPoint slide. Accommodations in an online learning environment. Taking online classes does not mean that you cannot access accommodations to make your learning more accessible for you. Instead of the in-person assessment center, you can access the virtual assessment center to write tests. If you run into difficulties, do not hesitate to let your accessibility consultant know by sending an email or booking an appointment. What is an accommodation? Accommodations support, help, assist, and level the playing field. They cannot modify or interfere with the outcomes or essential skill requirements. The goal of an accommodation is to help reduce the barrier that the disability presents. What is an accommodation? Continued. Accommodations are based on the specific nature of your disability, student need, and academic program requirements. Accommodations do not modify curriculum or course objectives. You still need to meet the same outcomes to pass the course. Accommodations can be altered as you become more familiar with your new academic environment. The Student Accommodation Form. Once determined with your accessibility consultant, your accommodations are sent out automatically at the beginning of each semester for the duration of your program. Only your accommodations are shared with professors, not the disability. If we need to make any alterations to your accommodations, you need to connect with your consultant to discuss your concerns. A new updated form will be sent out to your professors with the changes. Classroom and test accommodations are not the same as field placement accommodations. Some common accommodations. Some examples include reduced course loads, additional time for tests and exams, extensions on assignments, and recording lectures. Reduce course load. Often students decide to drop a course or two if the workload is difficult to manage. Many students with a disability have a reduced course load as an accommodation. Students with a permanent disability can go down to a 40% course load and still remain a full-time student. When you graduate, a potential employer is not concerned with how long it took you to complete, but how well you know material from your field of study. Reduced course load continued. Tips. Before dropping any courses, try them all out for 2 weeks or more and then speak with your consultant. Important dates to remember. This is available on the George Brown website. The date school begins, the last day to withdraw from a course or program without academic penalty, and the date the semester ends. Please speak with your consultant before dropping courses. Note-Taking Express, NTE. Note-Taking Express is an accommodation that allows students, as based on the disability, to record a live online class or a pre-recorded online class. First-time users. After this accommodation has been deemed appropriate by your consultant, you will receive an email that explains how to use NTE, and an account will be created for you. Make sure you read the handout or you will miss important information. You will need to audio record the class using a recording device. At the end of the class, you can upload the recording to your NTE account. Devices include smartphone, tablet, or digital recorder. Note-Taking Express continued. Training. If you would like to get one-on-one training on how to use NTE for your online classes, you can book an appointment at atsj@georgebrown.ca or contact your accessibility consultant to help you set up the training. Tips. Make sure you use NTE when needed and upload your recordings the day of the class. Place your audio recording device close to your computer speakers. Stay organized by renaming your file. Example, class_week_topic. Extensions on assignments. The first step is to connect with your professor before the due date, if possible. Carefully consider all your options and make sure you have a plan on when you will get your work done during the extension. Sometimes the professor may say no. Examples include group projects, part 1 of a larger project, etc. Tips. Show your professor what you have already completed when asking for the extension. You do not want to overuse this accommodation. Even if you are granted an accommodation, other work will still be assigned to you. Utilizing your test accommodations. Extra time on tests. If you have extra time on tests, please remind professors ahead of the test date to add extra time to your Blackboard test. We suggest more than 24 hours. Faculty should confirm that the extra time has been added before the test day. If, for any reason, you do not receive the extra time on a test, please contact your accessibility consultant. Tips. Review your course outlines, available on Blackboard or the GBC website, for when your tests and exams are scheduled, and mark it down on a monthly calendar. Utilizing your test accommodations continued. Reader-scribe accommodation. If you have a reader-scribe accommodation for tests, please book your test with the Assessment Center 7 days before your scheduled test. To book a test with the Assessment Center, please email booktest@georgebrown.ca. The Assessment Center will contact you to confirm the booking and provide setup instructions. What if something goes wrong? Description of the image on this slide is an image of 6 signs facing different directions with text that reads, unsure, lost, unclear, puzzled, confused, baffled. What if something goes wrong? Continued. Sometimes, even with accommodations, things don't always go as planned. If you've tried talking to your professor but are not getting the support you need, it is important to let your consultant know. Your consultant may be able to help you solve the issue or direct you to the right person or department. Semesters are only 14 weeks long. If you delay solving the problem, it might be too late to correct and save your semester. For academic issues, always try to talk with your professor first. Then you can talk to your program coordinator. Field Placement Accommodations. At GBC, we call field placements Work Integrated Learning, WIL. How do I know if I need an accommodation for field placement? Not all students with academic accommodations need workplace accommodations. This depends on your individual needs and/or if you've had workplace accommodations at a former workplace. Who is involved in the process? You, your accessibility consultant, field placement coordinator, field instructor, and field supervisor. If you are scheduled for a field placement and you think you might need accommodations, make sure you contact your consultant before the placement starts. We recommend 8 weeks. OSAP, the BSWD, and CSG-PDSE. The government uses the OSAP application to determine eligibility for disability bursaries. Funding from the Ontario Bursaries for Students with Disabilities, or the BSWD, is determined through OSAP. You must have either a permanent or a temporary disability. Funding from the Canada Student Grant for Services and Equipment for Persons with Permanent Disabilities, or the CSG-PDSE, is determined through OSAP. You must have a permanent disability. Tips. College is expensive. Tuition and books on top of rent and other expenses can be a financial burden. Consider all financial options. Make a realistic budget and stick to it.